What's up? It's Ciara Myst, and we're going behind the scenes. Every week, I'm breaking down the who, the what, and the how we made all of the looks for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 18. Walking into the workroom for RuPaul's Drag Race Season 18, I knew I needed to make a big statement about who I was and what my drag was. Fun fact, this look I had actually conceptualized for DragCon 2024 because I was the current reigning Halla Queen from House of Love. RIP to House of Love. They had invited me out to RuPaul's DragCon that year, and so I wanted to represent them, the contest, their brand, so my looks were sort of catered to that world. So as the current reigning Halla Queen, I had sketched out these looks. However, the wig that I had commissioned for this, there were a lot of things that happened with it. It got lost in the mail, it was coming from London, it didn't make it in time, so then we tried to redo it, and the redo was not very good. Anyways, I forget exactly where the conflama started, but it was very clear that I was not wearing this look to RuPaul's DragCon that year. That's okay, we figured it out. However, the idea, the seed, the pumpkin seed, was still planted in my brain. So I knew that this would be a gag to walk into the workroom and just give Queen of Halloween. Starting at the top, the wig we finally got correct because we outsourced it to my Indiana sister and friend, Universe de la Cruces. She did a great job sculpting all of these shapes, working with so many different textures, and we ended up actually just completely redoing the wig that I had started with. So much better. Moving down from the wig, the earrings were made by my dear friend here, Patience Eclair. She does all the jewelry for all the pageant girls here in Indianapolis, and I may not be a pageant girl, but I definitely know who to trust for jewelry making. We wanted to do something that still felt glamorous, but was not just a pageant earring slapped onto a scary conceptual look. We've seen that a couple of times, we don't need to see it here. It needed to be off of the shoulder, so a small dangle, a little cuff. It's honestly something that sort of blends in with all of the things going on in the hair, but when you get up close, you can go, she's wearing an earring. Moving on down to the corset, the hips, all of the drama that is happening here in this sculpted piece. So all of this on my entrance look is made out of Worbla, which is a thermoplastic that when you heat up, it can become moldable and take the shape of the form that's under it. And then when it cools down, it holds onto that shape. In order to get the right proportions for this, I actually had to start with a life cast, which meant my friends Poopshit the Clown and St. Pussifer had to take a body mold of me wearing my drag body. Now, I've done life casts before where I have had my face molded for prosthetics, but I've never done it wearing a bra, so that was new. Once we filled our negative mold with a plaster positive, I had something that I could sculpt on top of. So we would heat up the Worbla and mold it to the shape of my body so that way this part in the middle was really contoured to my body. Oh my gosh, wait, I forgot. Okay, before I did this practically, there was a little bit where I was like, maybe I can sculpt this in 3D and then we can 3D print it. Because back in college, I got into some 3D sculpting like ZBrush and Blender, and so I wanted to sort of bring that back out because I thought it might be easier to sculpt all of those forms in ZBrush and render it in 3D. However, this is a big ass piece. So that I knew pretty much after I started was a bad idea. Also, need to brush up on my 3D modeling skills. So that was a chop. I knew, okay, better to work with my hands. So eventually we got to the Worbla and the foam clay. Enter my friends Pancha and Ilana. So the three of us sort of would tag team in and out on adding foam clay all over the base of this and sculpting in the details to give it that really sort of pumpkin, organic texture. All of this was super important for blending my three pieces together. So I had my two pumpkin peplums. I think that's probably what I should call them. My partner Christopher sculpted the Worbla over one of our Halloween decorations that's an oversized pumpkin. So we were able to use one of our Halloween decorations to give us the shape so that way we could create these two forms. And then I was able to go in and carve out a jack-o'-lantern face on them. By adding the foam clay, we were able to mold all of this together to make sure that the textures and the patterns flowed seamlessly from piece to piece. Getting ready for Drag Race is already crazy. One thing that you don't really think about if you haven't gotten ready for Drag Race before, which I haven't, is how the hell do you get all of this there? So making this piece, it was so big, it was so tall, so wide, that once we figured out how we were going to get it there, it meant we had to cut this thing apart. So I already knew I wanted to lace the piece together in the back so that way it was something I could step into. But now we had to take the hacksaw and hack the pumpkins off of the main body, drill through each of those and add holes in all 3 parts so that way the pumpkins could stack inside of each other and the corset could sort of wrap neatly so that it could be packed and taken to drag race, and then I was reassembling it the night before I walked into the workroom. The finishing touches on this corset, of course, come in the paint job. I knew I wanted to match the sort of black vinyl texture that I had going on in the other parts of my body, but I needed to add this sort of orangey copper so that it still felt pumpkin-y in the right places. Now, some of you may be wondering, Ciara Myst, why are your pumpkins not orange? In my mind, I wanted to recreate the look of pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns at night on Halloween. The way that the candle glows from inside the pumpkin, it looks like the inside is more orange and the outside is dark and scary. So that's the paint job that I wanted to go for on the side of these things. It's a little hard to tell, but I actually have lights inside of the pumpkin. Now, the thing that took the absolute most time, it took the most hands, was this gorgeous, incredible train made by our friend Ailish Forner. Now, I don't think I can begin to name all of the people in Operation Stardust who actually helped with all of the vines and the stuffing and like pulling these through, because it truly was an army. I think we watched every iteration of Dune ever and Star Wars just in the time that we were stuffing and pulling and undoing all of the things to make these vines. It was a lot. But Ailish was able to handle all of the weight and all of the hand sewing and all of the pulling of this. I'm so thankful that I was able to drop off just mountains of different types of olive textural velvet fabric and all of these pieces in order for us to make this gorgeous train. Now, at my fitting, we kind of realized that the vines didn't have a lot of life to them when they were just dangling. They looked really cool, but we needed to be able to see them from the front, because when you walk into the workroom, that's sort of the focal point. Adding some snaps and hand sewing the vines together allowed us to place the vines in a way that they had life and movement and felt like they were growing off of the pumpkins around my hips. So I sewed the neck piece and my gloves and the leggings that eventually went into my shoe. And fun fact, the shoe that's under there, an 8-inch pleaser, mind you, is cut off at the ankle because I was feeling very anal when I was trying it on about trying to reduce the amount of lines that I saw in that. And so the shoe that you see is duct taped to my ankle, but I had no ankle support, so do not tip me over. This is my first time meeting my castmates for season 18, so walking in, and I remember the girls were really, and the question that kept coming up after the fact was, how the hell did you pack this? Thankfully, being able to disassemble it and reassemble it made it more possible for me to have this gigantic pumpkin entrance moment. So that's how I was able to have the biggest entrance look in the cast of RuPaul's Drag Race season 18. I was so happy to serve Queen of Halloween coming into the workroom, and if you want to see how I did my makeup look for my entrance, make sure you check out Runway Recreation. Until next week, bye.